That Note with Parker Whirling.
All right, we got Elijah Johnston here on That Note. Thank you for joining me. We're back. We are so back. It's been like 9 months since my last episode. A lot going on that I talked about in the little previous snippet. But here we are back. Had to have you on first. You're a favorite amongst the guests on this pod, and excited to talk about so many things with you.
Yes.
But first, let's talk about the album you picked today, which is I Like It When You Sleep.
Yep.
By 1975.
1975. Your prompts whenever you make people pick an album are always so interesting, and I feel like this one immediately stuck out to me when I looked at the collection because this band is one of my favorite bands, but I really didn't like them at first.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, I really thought that they sucked really bad.
Sure.
And the first album in particular rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
Really strongly, and then this one I disliked even more.
Right.
And it made me mad. I disliked it so much. And then I don't know, something when I was in college, I got really into their third album. And then
Brief Inquiry?
Yeah, Brief Inquiry. And then I went back and I was like, there's something about music that kind of irritates you at first, that then when you come back to it, it's like it has that like acquired taste thing where it's like, it's like when you eat something and you're like, this is really not for me at first, and then the more you get into it, you're like, actually, I think I can rock with this. So I don't know, that they like them being like one of my favorite bands is really funny to me because they
started off
really not something I liked at all.
What made you come around? So Brief Inquiry helped.
Yeah.
Was there a song on that album? Was there a song on this album that finally hooked you?
Honestly, I think when I came back to this record, I honestly think that what happened was that when I first heard this record when I was in high school, I didn't have the context for like what they were referencing. Like I didn't know anything about David Bowie or Chic or like, not like all this kind of 70s and 80s like funk music and kind of synth pop stuff. And so I just thought that it was irritating. And then when I found the music that they were kind of referencing, I was like, actually, you could definitely discredit it for what it's trying to do, but now that I understand what it is trying to do, I think I like it more. And the third album though was so like not genre specific, like it was so all over the map. And whereas this one, like I said, was much more, I think, coherently like 80s synth pop and funk and stuff like that. But that third album was so scatterbrained and like every song felt like a different band. And so I liked that aspect of it. And so I think in retrospect, I liked the fact that they kind of picked one thing on this one.
Yeah. I had almost the opposite experience as you, because when I was a senior in high school, that's when I got into them.
Yeah.
And I only found out about them because I was a huge fan of The Neighborhood. The Neighborhood,
real Tumblr hours.
Oh my God, yeah, it was embarrassing. Very much in that era of my high school years. But we went to see The Neighborhood, and the 1975 opened for them.
Oh, weird.
At Center Stage.
Backwards.
I know.
When you think about it now.
It's crazy to think about now. Yeah, so that's like my real hipster band in that way.
Sure.
To have seen them. And I knew like their EP that they had, which was like Chocolate, Sex, The City. I forgot what the other one was, but they were great back when Matty Healy had that insane haircut. I don't know if you remember that.
Crazy haircut.
So weird. We don't even talk about it anymore. Thank God. But I loved the first EP, the debut album, and I loved this one a lot.
Yeah.
And then when Brief Inquiry came out, I like didn't get it.
Yeah.
And then when the next one, Notes, came out.
Oh yeah,
I really didn't get it.
Yeah, that one has a lot of tech, like two-step, like UK garage.
Right. I never even got
electronic
there,
music. Oh,
because I would
interesting.
listen to people and I'm like, that's kind of cool that they did this. But then they would go to the one about, I don't know, there would be like 3 orchestral interludes, and it's like the first side of the album.
It is an album that starts with 5 minutes of monologuing about climate change.
Yeah, that's
So
I was a little confused.
It's a little like dense on purpose. But then by the time you get to like hour 2 of the album,
right,
you're listening to like 5 songs in a row of like heavy UK garage dance music, which
like what is that song? Yeah, I Know.
Oh,
love
so
that song.
good.
I didn't
So
know that
good.
song until Zach Crook introduced it to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean? This is on this album? So that's why I went back and listened to it, and I would listen to Brief Inquiry and
Sure.
and then honestly, I love the new album. I don't know if it's necessarily my favorite, but I think it's their best in terms of like being so concise.
Yeah, it helps that it's short.
Right, helps that it's short. And I'm hoping that they put out something new soon. They posted a thing on their Instagram.
They've been kind of cryptically talking about working on things.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully we'll get something. But yeah, so 1975, I Like When You Sleep. Great album choice.
There we go.
Why don't we segue into a potentially new song that you have coming out?
Yep.
Which, as I understand, is a cover, correct?
Yeah, I almost actually picked the album because
I was wondering if you would.
I thought about it, but I figured I would have a chance to talk about it otherwise. But yeah, we when does this isn't really when does this come out?
This will come out like on Wednesday, so in like a few days.
Okay, so this is kind of a sneak peek, but it's also we've had kind of a funny set of conversations about how to market this song coming out because it's like a surprise that's not a surprise. But yeah, we've got a cover of a song coming out on Valentine's Day, and the song is called Valentine's Day. It's an old Bruce Springsteen song from the album Tunnel of Love. And yeah, I don't know, it's gonna be we recorded it back in the summer, and I don't know, it's been a cool. We learned it last year to play a show on Valentine's Day, and because we all really liked the song, and it just felt like an interesting kind of like out there cover, because it's not a song that a ton of people know super well. Like, it's not like a Bruce hit or anything.
No.
He never played it live, is my understanding. Like,
oh wow,
I found he started playing it live in the 2000s by himself on the piano, and that was it. And it was very very abstract. When I heard the solo piano versions, it's like super arrhythmic and kind of like very Bruce doing his thing. But I don't know, when we decided to start playing it live, it was kind of a challenge to find like a way to convert a song that is, not to knock it, but it almost sounds like a demo, because Tunnel of Love, like, he did everything by himself, and
that's
so
right. Yeah,
it's a song that feels not like unfinished, but it feels kind of, it's so subdued, and it's so kind of stripped back as far as a lot of Bruce songs are concerned. And so I don't know, it was fun to find a way to convert that into like a 4-piece rock song live, and then we got just really in the pocket with it live, and then it's kind of metastasized into this long kind of epic version of the song that's a lot of fun.
I remember seeing you guys play it at the Georgia Theater when you played it at Valentine's Day last year.
Yeah.
And I feel like you teased that you were doing a cover or something, or somehow you had either told me that you were playing it, and I was so hyped because that is a personal favorite Springsteen song for me. And you're right, it's not necessarily one that the average person would know, or at least just the average Bruce fan would even really think about. But my dad bought me that album like in 2020 because he's a huge Bruce fan, like as all dads seem to be. And he got me into him through Born to Run and all that stuff.
Sure.
But eventually he bought me that one, and I don't really know what made him think to buy that one. I think it was just cheap. And I listened to the whole thing and enjoyed some of the songs. Some of them were fine. Some of them I thought were really good. But then Valentine's Day is the last song, and it's like the only time a Bruce Springsteen song has made me like cry.
It's so emotional.
It's beautiful.
It's one of them. It's kind of crazy, like how, I mean, Bruce has so many songs that are so like emotional and so, but part of his whole thing is that he's such a storyteller that it's like he tells these very crafted like arcs and narratives about other people. You know, his whole thing, like when he did that Broadway show, like the solo show, he would be like, you know, he would kind of talk about like, I'm a fake, like I'm a poser, like I don't know how to fix a car, I never did this kind of job, you know. He kind of has that. So I think part of what's so affecting about that song is that it's a lot more personal, but it's also it's a bit more like abstract than a lot of Bruce songs are, where like his songs are so detailed and so, you know, crafted. And then when he talks about himself, which I feel like that song is a little bit more personal, because it's a lot about like being on the road and being like far away from people. And, you know, he was
like his divorce album.
Yeah, he's like coming off of like this massive kind of like second wind of just like unbelievable success post, you know, Born in the USA. And he feels like his personal life is not going the way he wants it to. And so a lot of that song is about kind of like being away from people, and like, just my friend found out he became a dad, but he's having to like tell me about it on the phone, and I can't really be there for him, and I can't be there for this woman that I'm singing about. You know, it's just this kind of like really heavy. And I the first time I ever heard it, I just remember like there's a line where he says like, you know, they say if you die in your dreams, you die in your bed. And I was just like, that was one of those lines where you just kind of get like grabbed by the shirt.
Yeah.
Like, oh my, that's such a vivid image. And I don't know, I feel like I like pretty much every Bruce song, but it's like I have a special place in my heart for moments where he's a little bit less like buttoned up story wise, you know, like a lot of his like rock songs that are a lot looser I really love, and a lot of his songs that are like this that are so like kind of cracked and wounded, you know, and the poetry of it is like very very cool.
Yeah, there's a lyric in there too I wrote down that always gets me, and it's when he's going through the list of like what he's gonna see when he dies.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the bitterness of a dream that didn't come true.
Oh my gosh.
Oh
it's
man.
The saddest line, dude, ever.
It stings. That whole list just like hits you.
It's so painful because he's like talking about all these things but then he's saying like that's not what I'm going to be focused on.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like in my dying moments, I'm not going to be thinking about all the bad stuff. I'm just going to be thinking about you.
Right.
And it's just like, that is such an affecting but yeah, you're right. That line is so like upsetting.
Yeah. 'Cause you just as a person, you have all these dreams that you plan to accomplish, and, you know, we're still young, but I'm sure as you get older, you realize that there are things that you won't get to do because you didn't make time, and you think that those will be those great regrets, but maybe as you're, you know, going towards the end of your life, like those aren't important. You know that those are important. The people in your life that you love are important, and that's who you will be thinking about. Let's talk about the recording process behind it. As much as I love these deep conversations about that song. But yeah, you know, you did a cover, so obviously that's a little different. Did you go into it with a certain mindset versus trying to record an original?
I think because we had been playing it live for so long, it felt there was a little bit less like overthinking about it, because it was like, well, we've been playing it live and we've concocted this pretty cool arrangement. And then in the moment, there was a pretty like small but pretty sharp pivot in terms of like, we just realized that both of the guitars were basically playing the same part the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And, like any good producer would, Tom was like, someone's got to do something different because this is just redundant. And so, I'm like, and I think what was cool is like I was having to play a guitar part that I had never played before, and I like couldn't sing it the same way, and I had to kind of change my rhythm, and so I don't know. We just basically me and Drew Beskin, who plays guitar with me, and my brother Gideon and Aiden Hill, who plays bass in the band Hotel Fiction. We just played it live for like an hour in the studio, and just like massaged the arrangement. But it was different because we were in the middle of making this record that is being mixed right now, and we had we did a lot more live takes on the whole record in general. So I think we were in the mood and in the zone for that. But it was also like we didn't have a click, and I wasn't singing, and it was just very like rock band in the room, and that is like just so rare in my own music experience. Like that is not really often how I make music. Things are often a lot more piecemeal. And
like one instrument at a time.
Yeah. And so this time it was really interesting and different and exciting to be like, we're just gonna like play it, and that guitar sounds good. All right. Like we cannot think too hard about it because it's like it's just got to sound like the guitar. And that's the thing too, is like when you have good equipment that is great and players that are great and a room that sounds good, it makes it a little easier to not have to overthink about it, because it's like, well, that sounds like a really great electric guitar sound. So
right.
I don't really need to think too hard about that. And honestly, that's what was so fun about this song. And then we added some overdubs later of just like, some nice synth, and
love the synth at the end.
Oh yeah, feels great. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I mean it's a cool thing to, it like I said, a very different process than we normally work with,
Yeah.
But
do you think that in the future you'll probably apply that mindset about maybe being a little looser with how you approach the studio with any of your songs?
We definitely had a few songs that were on this, that'll be on this next record, that after that went so well, we sort of decided like, let's do as much live as possible. One of them we also didn't have there was another song where we didn't have a click, which was kind of cool and different. But we did a few different songs where there was live takes. And I think part of what it, maybe not as much of the looseness, but something that I think it really imparted on me to kind of keep going back to is just like quick problem solving without getting too lost in the weeds of it. Like doing a take of it, Tommy being like, someone's got to play something different on the guitar, and me being like, okay, well, I know my voicings. Like, I was a good little boy when I learned all my chords, I and so I'm like moving the capo around on the neck, like, where can I go here? And I find it, and it's like, that sounds good. Let's do that. Like, there's no need to really get too wrapped up in it. And there's a couple songs that we made where, a lot of times in the past, and I don't think this is wrong at all, but a lot of times in the past, I've had the impulse to be like, let's just like find someone who can do that, or let's call in someone to sing on like 5 seconds of this song, or like someone to play like one instrument one time, and it'll kind of be this very like all hands on deck. And a lot of the record was working around like time constraints and schedule constraints, and like the fact that it was basically the 4 or 5 of us in the room all together at the same time the whole time, and being like, none of us are amazing keys players, but someone's got to do it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
none of us really play the mandolin, but Drew's gonna play the mandolin, and it sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's like one song that we did that we actually, it was very weird. We did live takes, but we worked backwards, where we started with a live take of me, Gid, Tommy, and Drew all in the room together, where I'm playing the acoustic guitar. Normally when you do live takes, it's like you start with drums and bass,
Right.
and then you kind of build on top of the rhythm track. But this time we kind of did acoustic guitars, piano, and mandolin all at the same time. So we're like sitting around this room, kind of looking at
Like
each
a
other.
folk group.
Yeah, I mean, we might just have to put out like an alternate version just that way, because it sounded so strange. We got like 12-string guitar. Gid was playing like muted piano, and he honestly played stuff so well on the piano in that song that it like changed the song.
Whoa.
I was like, oh, now I know what the harmony part of the vocal is, like, because of that note you just hit on that's crazy, you know?
Huh.
And he's like doing all this kind of tear-jerking piano, and Drew's got all these funky like mandolin licks, and I was like, this sounds like medieval. This sounds like video game music in like a good way, you know?
Like in Skyrim.
Yeah, it's very well. It's like that, and then I was like, oh, I gotta find like a synth sound that sounds like 80s. I wanted this to sound like Zelda, basically.
Okay,
You know, like
cool.
I want
Yeah,
this
yeah,
to
yeah.
kind of feel like magical.
Some Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, some like old timey. We're going through the woods with a sword, you know,
Uh-huh.
and like I don't know. It was just working in that way where it's like none of us are really doing our strong, either not necessarily not doing our strong suit, but not doing our like first
Default.
not doing our default. There's a song where I played bass and Gid was playing drums, and we don't normally work that. Like, I very rarely play bass with him playing drums, and the rhythm section is such a important relationship. But ironically, as brothers, that's kind of where we're not playing together often, is me
Yeah.
on the bass. And so like we were kind of looking at each other like, is this any good? You know, like, is this working? And it worked great, you know, and just like having little moments all over the album where it's like, it works really well because we just got to the impasse of like, so we got to do something, and someone did something, and it's like, that's awesome. Let's not even question that and just
Totally
keep going. I don't know. So
Yeah.
I think that was a very long-winded way of saying that doing the live version of Valentine's Day taught us a lot about just like not overstuffing everything.
Right.
Which is cool.
Just trusting that a 4-piece can fill the room.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Painting with like, it's like if you're painting a room and you have like 5, or if you're decorating a room, you've got 5 things that are bold and eye-catching and like well-appointed versus like I've got 100 knickknacks everywhere.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like I've got a nice coat of paint, a good couch, cool decorations. I don't have like this room that looks like, you know, a thrift store threw up in it.
Right.
And that's I think just the kind of like bold colors, broad strokes, but minimal amount of things was kind of a lot of the thought process behind the record, which I'm really excited about.
That's awesome. I'm particularly excited about Ideas. That's my favorite song of yours for sure, hands down.
Yeah.
You've only played it live, or I've only heard it live.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first time I heard that, I was like, this is the one, man. Every time I hear it, it reminds me of like a teenage fan club kind of vibe.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's very live. It's, I think, a bit more, not that it's not this way on the recording, but live, it's definitely very, very like power pop.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, very teenage fan club. In the recording, it's a bit more like, I keep jokingly saying that it sounds like a Third Eye Blind song,
That's cool.
but it's kind of not a bad way to put it. But yeah, the song ideas that we've been playing live is something we're very excited about.
Yeah, I love that. And we would be remiss if we didn't get to chat about Mr. David Lynch.
Oh man, brutal.
I know.
Brutal day yesterday.
Today is the 17th, the day after David Lynch
So sad.
passed away as we record this. And you posted on your Instagram story something that doesn't surprise me much, but I thought was very affecting, which was that he has impacted you more than any musician or band has artistically.
Just about, yeah. Just about.
Yeah, so tell me about your relationship to him. How did you get into him? What was your journey like with David Lynch's films?
I think that for me, like, I had just graduated high school, and I was really interested. It was the summer that the third season of Twin Peaks was airing. And I was hearing so much about it online and reading people talk about it, and I was like, this sounds really interesting. I had watched the pilot, I think, of the original Twin Peaks when I was in high school, and I really didn't vibe with it at all. And I think I maybe had seen Mulholland Drive at that point, and I also did not understand. I didn't like it, and I was like, this is weird and doesn't make any, I was like 16, 17, whatever. And so that summer I was like, let me try this. And I remember I powered through the whole series so fast, just absolutely plowed through it. Because once I realized I liked it, I was like, I want to catch up.
Yeah.
And watch the third season.
Season 2 has like 30 episodes or something crazy.
Yeah, and it's a lot of gibberish. I mean, like,
right.
It's a lot. I love it, but it's a lot of nonsense. But and I wanted to watch the third season in real time, so I watched the last like 6 weeks, I think, of the third season. Like every Sunday night, it would come on, and it was just like almost incomprehensible because it's like the type of TV show, the third season of Twin Peaks, The Return, it was infamous as it was premiering. People were already saying, like, how on earth did this get made? Like,
yeah,
Showtime gave him just like a bucket of money and was like, tell us when you're done. And he had to wrestle with them for years about basically like, I don't want any oversight on this. And apparently when he turned the script in, like, as you know, like, people can look at a script and be like, oh, this many pages means it'll be this long.
Right.
Like this amount of time on screen. And they were like, oh, so this will be like 9 or 10 episodes, right? And he goes, no, it'll be 18.
Oh,
and so literally like the whole show is like moving at half speed.
Huh.
And it was so hard to wrap my head around. And I think as like so much media now is like so hyper speed, like you read articles about like internal memos at Netflix saying TV shows need to have more expository dialogue so that people can follow the show without looking at it.
Oh my God.
Like there was a memo at Netflix of like characters should do more of like, we're walking into this room now. Like literally like narrating their action,
That's horrible.
And so when that's like the environment of a lot of like visual media now, having a show that was so visually like you have to watch it because there's a lot of silence, there's a lot of dead air, there's a lot of imagery in it that is like the annoying thing that people say about David Lynch is like, oh, like it's just like dreams, man. It's just
right.
And I think really like what he got across in especially Twin Peaks, especially in Mulholland Drive, and particularly I feel like in the movie Lost Highway, is like people will say like, oh, is this movie like real or is this like happening in a dream? And I think the thing that's so great about his movies is that it's like that distinction is like not real. in his, like, that is not a distinction that his movies make, because like the formal techniques of any art form are going to like impart meaning on things. So like when you paint a picture, you don't look at that painting and say like, is Mona Lisa like happening inside of a dream? It's just like, that's just Mona Lisa. Like, that's just, she is there on that painting. And I feel like in his movies, oftentimes what happens is characters transform, like literally like people shift from, they like have some sort of out of body experience. They go through something stressful and they like wake up and they're another person. That's like a recurring theme in his movies, is like you go to bed and you wake up literally like in a different body. And people would always be like debating like, is the new version of the character a dream? Like, did something happen? And it's just like, no, like the movie is just telling you that like they have just transformed. There's no need to think about this kind of like, you don't have to do the like M. Night Shyamalan like plot twist YouTube essay, like what does it all mean? It's just like it just is what it is. Like,
you want to talk about broad strokes.
Like
that's
like
really
Laura
broad.
Palmer pulling her face off and like light coming out of the inside of her face. It's just like that, it just is what it is. Like the language is like so sincere and so mystifying in all of his movies, and you're kind of like, he's just very good at explaining things or making you communicate with the movie on a feeling level rather than like a language level,
like intellectual level.
And I think that's, if nothing else, like that's something that I feel like has affected the way I make things and also the way I consume things, of like, that's something I like and that I look for, of like, I do like really didactic storytelling. I like being told a narrative, being told A, B, C, D. I like that kind of stuff. I like songs that are like that. I like a good country song that has like a theme that loops back around and like point A to point B, plot, characters, whatever. But I also think the things that affect me more and that I feel more excited about when I make them are things where I don't exactly know how to tell you what they're about. And I think that there's a level of like, his creativity was so about never explaining yourself, like refusing to like give in to this notion that everything has to be completely spelled out. Not that he wouldn't talk about it, and not that I think it's bad to talk about what things are about. I don't think it's bad to be like, this song is kind of about this. Like, that's what we're doing right now. There's obviously nothing wrong with like analyzing what you do, but on some level, it's like, I think as a creative person, it's more important to find moments where there are things that are like inexplicable and intangible, and find moments like that. And I just feel like that's so much of what his movies were about, is like, sometimes someone just disappears and they never show back up.
Yeah.
And you're never going to hear from that character again. And it's going to be like, where'd they go? They're gone.
Right.
What else do you need to know? You know what I mean? Like, they were here and now they're gone. Or they were here and now they are.
Literally in the editing process, they disappear. Like, how many shots does he have where it just cuts?
Yeah.
And the person is just gone from the space, and there's no explanation.
And there's no explanation, and you will never hear an explanation. No one will even ask. That's what fascinates me, even about the characters in his movies, is that they all, and if you want to indulge in the annoying thing that people do of talking about David Lynch and dreams and stuff like that, he does like the way dreams work, where you will walk in a room and you'll turn around and you're in a different room, and a person will become like, you will be talking to your friend, and then you will turn around and then you turn back to them and they are now your dad, and then they transform. I mean, I've had dreams where people literally like shape shift in front of me. Like, that's like a thing that I have in my dreams often. People literally like transform into someone else. And like when you're in that space of like subconscious thought, that stuff makes a lot of sense to you.
You just accept it.
You can't, all you can do is accept it. And I feel like so much of what his movies are about is accepting, like, there are things that you cannot control, that you cannot understand. And all you can do is let it happen, and just accept that, like, there's just things that'll never make sense to you.
Absolutely.
And I don't know.
My favorite, well, I don't know if it's my favorite, but I watched it last night. So in honor, it was Eraserhead.
Oh yeah.
And going back to it,
crazy.
It's so insane. It's actually a lot funnier than I remember.
It's hilarious.
It's so funny.
The chickens thing is insanely funny.
Yeah, the legs moving up and down. Like, to me, towards the end, when the girl across the hall with the other guy, she turns around and sees him, and it's like the worm head.
Yeah.
So funny. It's like she just sees him as like this little bitch.
Yeah. You're a bug.
Right. Yeah. Also, the little baby laughing at him. It's crying the whole movie. And
it's funny, but it's also horrifying. It's this crazy, like, and it's funny because that whole movie is so interesting, because it's like, if you read about what was going on in his real life, it makes a lot of sense. You can extract a lot of, like, he became a dad. He was really afraid of fatherhood. He was like this person that was conflicted about like what he wanted and what he needed, and like, had all these kind of, he like wanted to do the right thing, but he was also like didn't want anyone to slow him down, and he didn't like to be tied down. And it's just like this, all these understandable things of like what you would imagine like a very creatively ambitious 28-year-old man who becomes a father maybe before he's ready. I think he was in his late 20s when he made that movie. But
so crazy.
He, like, just imagining like someone like that. I mean, he also that movie was made over the course of like 7 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They would literally, there's like moments in the movie where it cuts like shot to reverse shot, and it's like a year has passed.
Oh,
which is crazy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's wild.
They would just like raise money every summer and like spend another day or two on the lot, and then
sick.
Strike the set and start over the next year. But yeah, and I mean that just the testament to like he was, what he was making was like so integral to his life, that he wasn't like, I gotta do this, and maybe I'll paint, or maybe I don't know, maybe I'll get around to making a movie, or, maybe I'll get around to writing a song or whatever. He was just like, it was all he really did. And I don't know, it's just, he's a fascinating figure.
Incredibly inspiring.
Yeah.
Well, let's take it to the last 5, where we're just going to do 5 quick questions from this bowl here.
Yes, sir.
Shake it up. And then we'll be done.
Last 5.
Question number 1.
Question number 1. Best live show you've ever seen. That is hard. Oh boy. I did over the it was in the fall, I saw Vampire Weekend again.
Oh wow.
And it was really different than I saw them like 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And now they are doing their full like jam band thing.
Interesting.
It was very cool. I was really not expecting to. I was wary going into it because I really liked the new album.
Yeah,
but I knew that they were doing this kind of weird like jam band shtick, and it was a lot cooler than I thought it was going to be. They have like 9 people on stage and like saxophone solos and like really wigged out. Like they started playing Shakedown Street at one point by the Grateful Dead, which was great, which was very confusing. Like I was kind of like, and it was funny because there were all these people there that clearly were like real jam band people, and they were kind of like, I'm gonna let it slide.
Yeah.
Like you're kind of an interloper in this whole thing, but I'm gonna let it happen.
That is so interesting.
Yeah, it was very odd.
I saw them about 10 years ago as well at
Fox
the
Theater?
Fox. Yeah,
Cinco de Mayo.
I think so.
I was there.
Yeah,
Yes.
because they had done.
It was right after Modern Vampires.
Yes, Modern Vampires, but the other one hadn't come out yet.
Yeah.
That's so funny. We're at the same show.
That's
I was
crazy.
like a senior in high school, or maybe the year after high school.
I was a freshman.
There you go. Yeah, that makes sense.
Wow.
So crazy. Dang, I wish I saw them on this tour just for that experience. To be
It
able
was
to
crazy.
See how they've changed over
It was
10
kooky.
years.
I don't know that it's the best show I've ever seen, but I don't know that I feel confident answering like exactly.
It's a tough one. And there's different
Lived a
shows
long
that
life.
hit for different reasons, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's a good answer. Let's check out question number 2 here.
That's right. Worst song or album from your favorite artist? Oh my goodness. Oh boy. That's
I should say least favorite. I shouldn't say worst.
no,
that's a little
okay.
harsh.
That's okay. Man, there are so many bad Beach Boys songs. There are so many horrible Beach Boys songs. They are one of the funniest kind of like up and down ratio.
Yeah.
And I mean, they really went for it. A lot, like
yeah.
but
they really threw caution to the wind. at
yeah,
times.
I've been listening to that period a lot recently of like the like post Brian Wilson freaking out thing and like early 70s. I've been on a real kick of learning about Charles Manson, and because of that you have to deal with the fact that he like almost converted one of the Beach Boys to like being a Manson follower, which is really crazy.
Yeah.
And that Charles Manson wrote a Beach Boys song.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. The song Never Learn Not to Love from like I don't remember which album, but it came out in like 69, like a month before everybody got murdered.
Wow.
And it's like, it's a whole thing. He like wrote it and Dennis changed I don't know. It's a whole thing, but the Beach Boys have a lot of awful songs.
Yeah.
Like that period in particular, like the early 70s, there's just like a lot of music that is like, it's like a drunk guy trying to write a nursery rhyme.
Ugh.
Is basically what it sounds like. Cause that's basically what it was they were all so strung out and like, they were like the worst kind of, like rich California guys trying to get into like peace and love. And so
right,
it's
but
like
it's so corporate.
Yeah, the Maharishi was like trying to teach them about transcendental meditation, and they were just sort of like, yeah, man, good vibes. And it's just like the worst kind of that, thing. But
dang.
So
I've kind of purposefully kept it at like Pet Sounds, and that's really about it. I know that their Smile album is supposed to be really good.
The Smile Sessions, which was the reconstructed attempt at making the album Smile, is like one of the best things I've ever heard. But a lot of the fallout of them trying to make like a perfect album and not putting it together was that they scattered all this like garbage throughout their career for the next like 5 or 6 years. But
well, yeah, so that whole era, not even just one album,
yeah,
but
just that whole era.
Boys.
And even like the 80s songs,
yeah,
some of them are pretty stinky.
All right, question number 3. What do we got?
It's torn up, so I don't know.
Uh-oh. Somebody ripped it up. That's a common
occurrence want the truth
here.
To get out. Musical hot take. I'm trying to figure out how to say this like without being too
hey, that's what
without
this is
being
for.
too difficult. I know. I just think that people should stop, and I think we're kind of in a moment where this is getting less severe. We've got to stop making like singer-songwriter music that is about like just like ripping your heart out and being the most specific, angsty. I'm just like tired of hearing songs that have like 2 or 3 chords and like that are not well played, and like the same kind of breakbeat drum set, and like someone being like, I'm trying to tell you the most specific, painful thing that ever happened to me, or I'm trying to be like really mean. There's a weird kind of like angsty but unhelpful and unproductive attitude to a lot of like singer-songwriter music right now that in people our age that I find really irritating.
Yeah.
I think people need to relax a little bit.
I think there is something to be said about like, when you say singer-songwriter, I kind of think also of like indie pop.
That's kind of what I mean, is like these kind of like these like indie pop like all these like very well filmed vertical videos of songs that suck. Like, you know what I mean? Just like really bad songs.
Yeah, the hyper specific lyrics, I totally know what you mean.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is so clearly specific to you, and like there is some initial intrigue there because I guess we're not so used to hearing that.
Yeah.
Compared to like the rest of our time here on in the music world.
Right.
Since the 60s, like there's very dreamy lyrics and whatever. I mean, sometimes specific, but like when you're talking about, I told my therapist this.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Therapy language, we got to get that out of here. We got to never.
It's just getting a little overplayed now.
I never want to hear another person say the word narcissist in a song.
Yeah,
I'm done. I'm all good on that. I just like, I need less therapy language in songs. I need less like, because the problem is that everybody learned the wrong lessons from like Phoebe Bridgers becoming popular. They all learned the wrong lesson. They didn't get the memo that they should like find their own voice and like find something that makes them them. And they all they got the memo of was I'm gonna like do that but worse. I'm gonna do a version of that stinks.
Which is also just such a tale as old as time. It's like someone gets big and then
it happens.
But it is like, it's funny to be able to pinpoint some of the specifics as they happen, and then this will die off and there will be another thing. I mean, there was that with like 100 Gex making hyperpop. So
yeah, that's
huge
true.
That's
true. Yeah, that trend has seemingly gone by the wayside.
Yeah.
I've told a few people that I'm really looking forward to. I feel like 2025 is going to be the year of all the people that have gotten really into playing the rubber bridge guitar and singing specific lyrics. They're all going to like drop that, like Andy dropping Woody, being like, I don't want to play with you anymore. And they're all going to get really into sounding like McGee.
Oh, dude. Yeah. McGee's right around the corner.
That's the new thing, is everyone's going to get really into like baritone guitars.
Totally.
And like
wonky, distorted
an
sounds.
Unplugged synth sound.
Right, going through a Tascam.
Yeah.
But no, I couldn't agree more, and that's also a good prediction for 2025.
That's the trend. Oh yes, okay.
Let's check out. Question number 4, I think.
4, yeah. I'm just yapping, bro.
No, you're good. That's what it's for.
Unexpected musical influence. I don't know. I feel like I had this question on here one time, and I answered. I was talking about like ambient music and like One a Trick's Point Never.
Yeah.
I will say now, real talk, like on this last record, like straight up video game music.
Let's
like,
go.
Was playing a lot of Zelda the last year.
Cool.
And was often like looking for a synth sound that matched like something that I would hear in like Breath of the Wild, just looking for something that felt kind of magical.
That's so sick.
But magical, but also like someone trying to concoct an idea of a magical woodland
meta sort of.
Yeah, it's like, it's not just like magical, it's like your idea of a fantasy world.
Yeah, you can almost picture like the programmer in his cubicle thinking about what this Hyrule forest would sound like.
Exactly. So that's I think the last year has been that's been a funny like thing that I never would have anticipated.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay.
All right, last question.
One. That's another one I've actually had before, so I'm gonna grab a different.
I need to redo these. I'm just gonna be on the record and say that
that's okay.
9 months I still haven't redone them, but I'm doing that now.
What's on your musical rotation? I have been in deep like trying to concoct the album mode recently, and when I do that, I don't really listen much to anything. But I have been listening to Claude Debussy. I've been listening to piano music, classical music.
Throwing it way back.
It helps kind of like center me a little bit. I like classical music and piano music. I've been listening to a lot of like trying to listen to music without words recently, like Julian Lage, the jazz guitarist. I've been listening to a lot of him lately. That's kind of what's been on my on my mind a lot
recently. I feel the same way about the no words thing, but I've been going like the opposite direction of like Autechre.
Interesting.
Really like electronic weird stuff.
Yeah.
But I always say I want to go back and like find a classical composer that I can like really get into. And I don't know if there really has been. The closest is like Johnny Greenwood.
Sure,
but I'm just partial because I
awesome.
love Radiohead, you know. But I'm trying to think of like a classic one that I can really get into. But I don't know. Maybe one day. For now, it'll be the weird bleeps and bloops.
That's okay. That's cool too.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, Elijah, that's our time on that. That's the ice machine. If you heard that, it held off to the very last second.
Respect.
Yeah, thanks again for coming on, man. This was a blast. First episode back after the break. Really appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
Everybody, get ready for your cover of Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
coming out on Valentine's Day.
Correct.
Sounds awesome. And any shows coming up you want to plug?
We've got some stuff next week. I think by the time this comes out, it'll have all kind of happened by that point. But just new record coming eventually this year, and
follow on Instagram, stay updated.
And I mean, I guess are you doing a little intro to talk about your absence?
Yes.
Okay.
Just like I'll do.
Because I was gonna actually try to bring that up at the start, but then you mentioned that, and I was like, man, you've been busy, man.
Yeah.
All these new songs.
Yeah, man. Just putting out tunes.
You were in a film, in a major movie. Which was really good.
That was sick. Thanks, man. Thanks for going to see it. Yeah, go see Saturday Night. I think it's out now for streaming. If it's not, you can still buy it or rent it.
I really had the moment of like, I told Caroline, my girlfriend, going into the movie, I was like, this is a great cast. All the pieces are there. There's always the chance that those things don't come together.
Totally.
And I told her, I was like, I'm going into this with the mindset of like, I'm going to be really happy no matter how this turns out. And then I came out of it and I was like, I actually really liked that. And I was like, in a way that I didn't even really know that I would. And I was kind of like, all right, well, this is really exciting to not have to be like, good job.
Yes.
And not talk about it much more than that.
Absolutely. Such a sigh of relief when you can actually enjoy
it was great.
Something that your friend has done and it's not like, forced.
Yeah.
So,
because there's been plenty of music and movies and student films and things like that people I know have participated in where I've had to be like, you did a good job and I'm proud of you, but I don't really love that, so it was nice to be like, oh, this is just a good movie.
Hell yeah, dude. And you've got great taste in movies, so that means a lot.
I'm trying.
I appreciate you going to check it out.
For sure.
And if you guys want to go watch it, you can go stream it Saturday night on Amazon Prime and all that. But yeah, Elijah Johnston, thanks again for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
On that note, with Parker Whirling.